Reality check. Here we're back again, reading from a Monument to the End of Time. And before I get going on, a couple of things I want to say. We have a show coming up soon on where I and Sharon Rose are interviewed about our films 2012, The Odyssey, and Time Wave 2013, which were big, huge hits back in 2006 and 7 and maybe 8. And we're putting those up on our subscription site. So if you're a subscriber, you'll be able to watch those two films. They're really good films. Terrence McKenna, Alberto Villoldo, Neil Donald Walsh, just a whole bunch of people are in those films, and they're really good. And the second thing is that I'm starting a show also on the subscription site called Conspiracy Hunter. And the first episode will be about the Titanic and how the sinking of the Titanic was really the 9/11 of its time period. And it'll be jam-packed with all sorts of facts that you don't know that you will be blown away by, including the fact that the Titanic didn't sink. Now you're going to listen. All right. So today we are on section 3, chapter 4. This one is called The Kaaba, the El Most High, and the Covenant of Abraham. Oh, before I begin, I want to talk about something that I did last time, because I want you guys to understand it. So in order for you to be able to know where you are in space, you have to triangulate yourself. So you have to, it's like a square. You have to triangulate. And so these tellies, these dragon accesses, there's 3 of them. And the reason that there's 3 of them is because they're triangulating Earth's place in outer space. So just so we go over it one more time so you understand what the 3 dragon accesses are. The first one is Draco, which is a dragon, Draco the dragon. And it goes and wraps around the North Star. And it's in every sign of the zodiac because it's up top. The second axis is the one that goes through our planet, through our sun, straight to the center of the galaxy. Okay, it's like a line, goes right through there. Okay, and then the third axis is the galaxy itself. So from Sagittarius to Gemini is the galaxy. And you can, like I said last time, right now we are in July, and you should start seeing Sagittarius and Scorpio and the center of the galaxy rising in the south. And it'll get up to about maybe 35 degrees before it starts sinking back again. But it is coming right now because we're moving south now because we passed the solstice. So the sun's moving north until you hit the summer solstice, and then the sun starts moving. Now it starts moving south again, right? All right. This one again is section 3, the Kaaba, the El Most High, and the Covenant of Abraham. So what I just told you about the dragon axis are going to have some relevance to what I'm doing here. According to biblical tradition, Abraham learned the great ancient secret from Shem, the son of Noah, also known as Melchizedek. He was the righteous king of Ur and Salem, which is now thought to be Jerusalem. The most important mysteries of the work of creation concern the significance of the letters of the Hebrew alphabet and their relationship to astrology and the mysteries of the calendar or time itself. Attributing the wisdom to Abraham and Melchizedek places its origin in the 18th century BCE, the time of the rise of the New Kingdom of Egypt, as well as the Vedic scholars of India. Abraham was considered to be the greatest magician and astrologer of his age. The Talmud tells us that, quote, all kings of East and West, and that would be Egypt and India, arose early to wait at his door, unquote. The teachings of the work of creation are one of the primary astrological texts of the ancient world. This teaching incorporates the astrological wisdom Abraham was said to have known in his heart, that is, revealed to him through the meditative or magical means. 40 miles or so inland from Jeddah is in what is now Saudi Arabia The town of Mecca sits at the juncture of pre-Islamic Arabia's most important trade routes. The mile-long caravans from spice kingdoms of southern Arabia on their way to the world markets of Mesopotamia turned north and east through the gap in the Hejaz Mountains near Mecca. Cargo from Africa, Abyssinia, now Ethiopia, lies just across the Red Sea, landed at Jeddah, and moved inland for its first stopover at Mecca. The town thrived on trade and travelers. This is significant because from its foundation, the town of Mecca was also an important sacred site and a destination for pilgrims. The ancient Arabs were pantheists who worshiped the spirit or genius of a place in a variety of ways, including pilgrimage and animal and human sacrifice. They personified the sun and moon, the sky, the stars, and the desert, and lived in a world with jinns and afrits, or spirits and ghosts. Jinns could also be thought of as archons. In the vast darkness of the desert, the stars became the backdrop against which the mythological drama of life played itself out. Navigating in the desert as at sea required a knowledge of the stars and their relationship to time and movement. These factors gave rise to a complex astrological mythology. This astrology was similar, if not exactly the same, to that found in the oldest sections of the Sefer Yetzirah. Abraham, as revealed in the Talmud, was the most famous astrologer of his time. Interestingly enough, even in the 18th century BCE, Mecca was a junction point in the trade between India and Egypt. According to the tradition within the Quraysh, Muhammad's clan, Mecca was also founded by Abraham and his other son, Ishmael, whose name means God hears. From the Sefer Yetzirah, we learn of the cube of space. The 12 edges of the cube are formed from the 12 double letters of the Hebrew alphabet, which are attributed to the signs of the zodiac. Within the jewel-like tree of life forms. Just so I go, I'm going to show you this. That's the cube of space with the 12 signs of the zodiac and the Hebrew writing. Yeah, okay. Abraham, as revealed in the Talmud, was the most famous astrologer of his time. Interestingly enough, even in the 18th century BCE, Mecca was a junction point in the trade between India and Egypt. According to the tradition within the Quraysh, Muhammad's clan, Mecca was also founded by Abraham and his other young son, Ishmael, whose name means God hears. From the Sefer Yetzirah, we learn of the cube of space. The 12 edges of the cube are formed from the 12 double letters of the Hebrew alphabet, which are attributed to the signs of the zodiac, within which the jewel-like tree of life forms. This astrological concept is attributed to Abraham, just as the building of the physical cube, the Kaaba of Mecca, with its sacred black stone, is also claimed as his work. This is the famous construct with its meteorite black stone that all Muslims attempt to touch at least once in their lifetime. A cube has 12 edges. Each of these edges relates to a different sign in the zodiac. The cube of space in Mecca, here on earth, is a fractal representation of the real cube of space. The pilgrimage to Mecca still stands as a powerful example of the Islamic faith. According to Muslim tradition, the Kaaba, or cube, from the same root, has been rebuilt 10 times, mirroring the number of spheres on the tree of life. The Kether, or crown cube, was said to have been built by the angels in heaven. It is this cube of space that is described in the Sefer Yetzirah and the Bahir. Wisdom and understanding, the second and third cubes, were said to have been built by Adam and his youngest son, Seth. The fourth is named Mercy. It was built in an after the flood restoration by Abraham and his young son, Hagar and Ishmael. It is from this point that Mecca dates its founding. Strength and beauty are the fifth and sixth cubes that were built in Mecca. They were attributed to the kings of the Sabian and Himyarite kingdoms. The seventh cube, victory, was built by Quasi, the patriarch of the Quraysh. The eighth, splendor, was done during Muhammad's lifetime. The ninth and 10th cubes, attributed to the Sephiroth named Foundation and Kingdom, were built within 60 years of his death. Within the cube is the sacred black stone, a piece of purplish red tektite embedded in the wall of the southeastern corner, about 5 feet from the floor, at just the right height for kissing. The black stone has been part of the cube in Mecca since at least the version attributed to Abraham. Tradition states that the stone represents the new post-catastrophe covenant between God and the family of Abraham. Muslim scholars also point to a verse in Matthew chapter 21, 42 through 43 for support. Jesus, during his week in Jerusalem, often came to the forecourt of Herod's temple to teach. Matthew tells us that as Jesus entered the temple that morning, he was accosted by the chief priests and the elders who demanded by what authority he taught the scriptures. Jesus asked them a question. Was John baptized by heaven or by men? When the elders can't answer, Jesus refuses to tell them his authority and then lays at them for their spiritual blindness. Even the people on the street, the obvious sinners, could see that John was a man of righteousness, Jesus tells them, but you, the spiritual leaders of the people, still can't decide on the source of John's message. He continues, making the point even sharper. Within the parable of the tenants who wouldn't share the fruits of the harvest with the landlord of the vineyard, but instead killed his servants and his son, Jesus asked the elders, what did they think would happen when the owner returned? They replied that he would turn the tenants out of the vineyard, of course. Jesus then drove the point home by quoting Psalms 118, 22, 23. Quote, the stone the builders rejected has become the head of the corner. The Lord has done this, and it is marvelous to our eyes, unquote. To make sure they got it, Jesus said, quote, therefore I tell you that the kingdom of heaven will be taken from you and given to those who will produce the fruit, unquote. It's easy to see how the Muslims saw this parable as a support for their religion. This encounter was very likely the motivating incident that led to Jesus's betrayal and death. From this point on, we are told by the Gospels, the Jewish elders plotted a way to arrest him without the people knowing and interfering. Christian commentators see in this incident the shift from Judaism to Christianity, with Christ as the stone the builders rejected. Jesus is clearly stating that the Jewish elders no longer understood the basis of the religion they professed. To the Muslim, however, who had seen how little spiritual fruit Orthodox Christianity produced, this verse suggested another interpretation. The rejected stone was Ishmael, the part of Abraham's progeny rejected by Israel. The stone, the black meteorite, was also rejected, cast out of the sky or heaven. Israel broke its Abrahamic covenant, therefore the kingdom of heaven reverted to the other ear, Ishmael, who will gather the fruits of the harvest. The landlord of the vineyard in the parable is, of course, Allah to the Muslim, not Yahweh or Jehovah in the Hebrew tradition. In Genesis 14:18, we are told that after a great battle, Abram, as his name was then, worshiped the God Most High within the king of Jerusalem, Melchizedek. As we have seen in the Bahir, Melchizedek was thought to be Shem, the son of Noah and a survivor of the catastrophic flood. He was also Abraham's teacher and collaborator in the work of creation. The titles used in Genesis, quote, God Most High, Lord of Heaven, and Creator of the earth, unquote, are the same titles used for Baal. That's Baal, B-A-A-L. That's the god that the Phoenicians worshipped in Phoenicia, which is now Lebanon. Lebanon. They are also the same as the ancient Canaanite name for the pole serpent, the Teli, which the Sefer Yetzirah tells us is hanging over the universe like a king on his throne. It is important to understand that all these mythologies are essentially astronomical. The Teli in Draco is the constellation that rules over all the signs and therefore the ages and the worlds, the past and the future. The Muslim creator Allah is simply the Arabic version of this Canaanite El, Baal or Baal. It is considered translated as the space-filling God. Allah is also called He who holds the stars in place. This God Most High can only be the constellation of Draco. Not only does Draco fill all the signs of the zodiac, but it sits atop the cubus very much like a king on its throne. Before the coming of Islam, at the Kaaba in Mecca, the temple of Allah contained altars to his 8 wives and daughters. These ancient goddesses are clearly related to the 7 planets and the earth. Al-Uzza, the mighty one, was the sun. Al-Manat, the triple-faced goddess, was clearly the moon. The earth goddess, whose name was Alat, is actually Tala, Teli spelled backwards. The earth is the mirror of the tele. Everything that occurs in the heavens will be mirrored down on earth. Therefore, the tala in space becomes the alet here on earth. This serves to clinch our identification of Allah with the tele or the pole serpent. But there's more. From the ground looking up, the ancient astronomers saw that Draco curved around the still point of the ecliptic pole and that its tail bent backwards to form an L-shaped. This is perhaps the model from which the word El was derived. Reflected on the earth, however, this L of the tele or pole serpent is reversed. If Allah is the God Most High, the L in the sky, then his daughter, the earth, is a reflection of that nature. And so the masculine El or Al becomes the feminine La. Okay, before we go on, I'll show you this. This is, on the bottom is the constellation of Draco, and above it is the Arabic letter for the word I. And you can see that they look very similar. The Quraysh, who thought of themselves as descendant of Abraham, worshipped Allah as their chief god. They referred to him as the Lord of the soil, to whom they must pay a tithe of their crops and herds. This was not quite monotheism. Allah still had his wives, but it paved the way for Muhammad's insistence that Allah was the one and only God. Muhammad, like Abraham, decided that the God Most High was the only God worthy of worship. The book of Genesis tells us that soon after Abram received the blessing of the God Most High, the Lord visited his word upon him in a vision. He commanded Abraham to look up at the stars and count them if he could. God promises that Abram's descendants will be as numerous as the stars, or possibly will be the stars. All he had to do was make a covenant with the Lord by performing a peculiar ritual sacrifice. Abraham is told to take 5 animals, split the heifer, the goat, and the ram in 2 halves, and leave the 2 birds whole. The 10 resulting halves can be attributed to the spheres on the tree of life, according to the sages of the Sefer Yetzirah. This arrangement polarized the tree of life. It is normally shown aligned along 3 parallel axes into 2 groups of 5s, like the fingers on each hand. The spheres are then attributed by their masculine or feminine qualities. 6 are clearly polarized since they occur on the right or left pillar of the tree, while the other 4 are normally on the middle axis. Attributing them this way produces a shift or a split between Tifereth and Bina on the left and between Yesod and Tifereth on the right. This is the origin of the rabbinical blessing gesture and the gap between the 3rd and 4th fingers made famous by Star Trek's Vulcans. It also symbolizes Abram's arrangement of offerings, so that the Vulcan, I used to know how to do this. How do I do it? I can do this. The Vulcan grip, right? That's also a blessing. The actor, what's his name that played Spock, he was Jewish, and he came up with that. Later, when he was 99 years old, the God Most High made a return appearance to confirm the covenant. This time, the Lord changed Abram's name to Abraham by adding an H, or the Hebrew letter He, in the middle. He is a pictogram of a window in ancient Hebrew. The Lord also instituted the rite of circumcision as a physical sign of man's acceptance of the covenant. From this point on, Abraham's descendants were the chosen people of the God Most High. Much of this makes little sense until we remember that in the Bahir, the 12 edges of the cube of space are also the zodiacal signs connecting the spheres on the tree. The gap or aisle between the sacrifices, like the gap between the rabbi's fingers and the blessings, represents the astrological signs of Sagittarius and Gemini. These signs mark the 3rd dragon axis, as we noted above, which is the axis of the galaxy itself. The fire pot within the blazing torch, symbol of the presence of the God Most High, travels the major axis of the galaxy from the center out to the edge. Abraham made his covenant then with the creative force flowing outward from the galactic core, or our 3rd dragon axis. He called this the God Most High, who is also Muhammad's Allah. Our world is formed from the intersection of the 3 pillars, or axis of the tele. Abraham's descendants entered the Galgal, or cycle of time, through the He, or the window, added to his name by the Lord. Het is attributed to Aquarius, the zodiacal sign at the right angles to the axis of the galaxy. It also symbolizes the moving axis of the coiled serpent, which defines the evolutionary flow of human events and the quality of time. Abraham's descendants would be the chosen people of God as long as they remembered the window into the cycle of time which God had given them. This may be the motivation behind Jesus' warning that the Hebrews had lost their true faith. They'd forgotten the window into the cycles of time. Stone was the physical seal of this covenant, a gift from the sky, a token of God's favor. It is interesting to note that the description in Genesis 15-17, that of the smoking fire pot with the blazing torch coming out of it, also suggests the path of a meteor through the sky. The actual placement of the black stone within the Kaaba also suggests the northwest-southeast axis of the galaxy as seen in 2 dimensions. The stone which fell from heaven is a physical piece of evidence for the presence of the God Most High. With this in mind, we can understand the reference in Psalms to the rejected stone, which became the head corner, and Jesus' denunciation of the Jewish elders for not understanding their own religion. If Jesus was a student of the Bahir, then he would have known the secret of the Tele. From the elders' answer to the question of authority, Jesus knew that they no longer grasped the secret of time. John the Baptist had preached that the kingdom of heaven was near. How could he have known that? This is really what Jesus is asking the priests and elders. They, of course, had no answer, so Jesus refused to tell them the truth. By asking the right question, we can see that we must already know the answer. He must already know the answer. All right, so here's the cube in Mecca, the black cube. And there's the splitting of the hands, and so you can see that the early Arabs also had known the secret of the 3 dragon accesses. Should also be noted that Abraham's original name was Abram, which is very close to Brahman, if you think about it. And Abram's wife was Sarah, and Saraswati is the wife of Brahma. So it's kind of there's some weird links with all this going back into the Vedic literature. Of course, Jesus and Christ and Krishna, and there is some link there which has to be explored by somebody, because it's super important. We know that Jesus studied in India and with his brother Thomas, because there's a temple of records in India of that. So that was a complex take on this astrotheology. We are winding down on this. Let's see here. I think we're almost done. Yeah, I think I only got one more section to read, and then we'll be done with it, and we'll go back to our examination of the history of alchemy, and then heading up to the Cross of Henday. Again, I got a show on my subscription site coming called Conspiracy Hunter. I was called by Wired magazine. Jay Widener is an erudite conspiracy hunter, and so I said, when they called me that, I thought, hey, that's a cool name for a show. I always wanted to have a show called Conspiracy Hunter, and this stuff I can't play on YouTube, so it's got to be on the private subscription thing, because YouTube just won't allow it. So anyway, all right, I'm Jay Widener. This is Reality Check. Hit like and subscribe and hit the bell, and thanks for watching. Jay Widener, Reality Check, and we're starting a membership plan for content that we don't normally want to put up on some of these platforms, and I want you to join. We're not going to stop doing the regular shows. We're just adding content. Be a lot more one-on-one stuff with me, and I think you guys will find it really interesting. So we'll put it up here below how you can get into the membership plan, and please join. I'm Jay Widener, and thanks for watching. Bye.